call this meeting to order, the Oconee County Planning Commission, 6 p.m. Monday, October the 21st. Our first order of business is invocation. Ms. Stacy.
Dear Lord, we come to you today just thanking you for this day, Lord. Thank you so much for the rain that you've given us. It's so much needed. We just ask that you be with us through this meeting, Lord. Let us conduct things in a manner that would be pleasing to you and that would be a representation of the citizens of this county. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Ms. Quinn, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have public comment for non-agenda items. Barnett.
Uh-oh, who is it? It's quite for the record, my name's Jerry Barnett, same as it was the last time you see me. I don't have any aliases. Well, I guess I do if you ask certain people. But to go back, as you all know, I'm no big fan of this so-called Ag Advisory Board because they're appointed cronies. The people in the rural community had no part in putting this Ag Board together. And I see again where they're harping about wanting, in a sense, wanting to take inventory of rural assets, of livestock, crops, and whatnot. The USDA, you need to understand the pecking order here. Right at the top is U.S. Department of Agriculture. They send out the surveys. And according to this board, only 70% respond to it. But that 70% is official. Nothing that this county puts together will be official. It will be used at some point to rob the rural community of its assets in some fashion. As I've said before, all the damage to a free society happens through local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett. Our next item is approval of minutes from our 10-7 meeting. Do I hear a motion?
One minor correction, I'm sorry. Under number 4, public comment for non-agenda items, Mr. Barnett is pleased, not pleased. Other than that, it was good.
Need a motion to approve?
Second.
And a second. So any further corrections or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Item number 6. Adam, you want to go over this?
Certainly. So the planning department stamps plats for making sure they meet county codes. You all have, through motions and voting in the past, appoint people to stamp those plats. Especially this time of year, with people combining parcels due to their getting their tax notices and things of that nature. It gets a little bit busier. Vivian's been in the office for 6 months now. I believe she's capable of distinguishing which plats need to be looked at and which do not. So in order to be officially stamping plats, as it were, she would need a motion and a vote in the affirmative to allow her to do that officially.
All right, do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. You asked for it, Vivian.
Thank you.
You got it. All right, now we're going into the comprehensive plan. Mr. Barnett, you're up first to speak.
Again, my name is Jerry Barnett. I'll be the same guy tomorrow. I wake up every morning and know exactly who I am and what I stand for. That doesn't change. Y'all are talking about land use. Comprehensive land use plan. You need to understand that my farmland is one of my bank accounts. Do you seriously think that you can seize control of my personal bank account? Do you think that will stand constitutional muster? You know, we've been over this time and time again. We've got some people that have brought themselves to our home that seem to have a great fear of a free society. That somehow our right to control our destiny in the rural community threatens them in some strange way. A free society benefits everybody. A free market system when it comes to agriculture. And South Carolina, you know, thank God, we're a right to work law, we've got the right to farm law, and, you know, I might not ought to mention this, but we were the first state to secede from the Union. Now, I don't think we need to be too proud of that part, but we have set the standards here in this great state for a free society in this great nation. And great sacrifice has been made to maintain a free society, and this local government has a responsibility. Now, you folks are appointed. We don't vote for y'all. If we did, I don't know who would be there. But we don't. And you're appointed by certain councilmen that expect you to do certain things to us on behalf of special interest. But the biggest special interest group in this county is the rural community. We were living this way, but then people brought themselves to our home. Hopefully 100 years from now, we'll still maintain a free society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett. Owens?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and staff. My name is Gary Owens. I'm the president of AQD, the Advocates for Quality Development. If you're not aware, AQD is a not-for-profit, community-based organization that's been in existence since 2006 in Oconee and Pickens counties. We represent an estimated 7,000 residents in the upstate, either as individual members or as residents of member HOAs. Our mission is to promote quality development in Oconee County and western Pickens County by highlighting concerns and opposing projects that threaten public safety or impair the environment, ecology, watershed, or quality of life. I'm here tonight representing our members to congratulate you all, the commissioners and the staff, on the hard work you've been doing to develop a new 10-year comprehensive plan for Oconee County. You've excelled in reaching out to the residents, the businesses, other not-for-profits, including our own, and others to engage and involve us in the planning process. In my 13 years of living in Oconee County, I don't remember a more thorough process to gain citizen input on such an important topic. As a not-for-profit, with our mission as I just read to you, AQD has been very involved in this process. Our board and members have attended many of the public meetings that you have hosted around our county over the last several months. Additionally, the Board of AQD committed to review and comment on each comprehensive plan element that has been posted to the county website over the past several months as well. We thought it was our duty to accept your invitation to provide quality input on the various elements, and we appreciate having had the opportunity to do that. As we all know, a plan is only good as it is executed. We encourage you, the commission, the council, county council, and the staff to take the next steps of implementation just as seriously as you have taken gaining our collective input in the county. In my view, once the comprehensive plan is accepted by the Planning Commission and the County Council, the implementation plan found in the executive summary must be followed with assignment of needed actions to the Planning Department staff and other county departments as appropriate. Equally important to implementation is selecting strategies for implementation based on the input from the citizens. As I mentioned before, you have gone to great lengths to obtain citizen input, and again, I commend you for that. Now, we hope that you'll, of course, follow that input that you gained through all of those various meetings. A quarterly review of accomplishments by the Planning Commission and the County Council will ensure that this comprehensive plan becomes a plan that turns into action. A strong implementation incorporated into annual performance objectives of county staff will ensure that it's not something that just sits on the shelf. And I know several of you before have stated you don't want another plan that gets dusty for another 10 years, and I commend you for that. Regarding the land element, this is a well-written element, and it is the heart of the comprehensive plan. After watching the last Planning Commission meeting, I understand there still is some debate about the future land use map. Please remember that it's simply a guide and sort of a vision, and not a requirement to be followed when land decisions are made. We, being AQD, do support the future land use map as part of the plan. Lastly, we understand, and I think it's on the agenda tonight that I've seen, we understand there may be established a corridor planning committee by the Planning Commission made up of county residents. AQD would like to volunteer to provide a member to this subcommittee if you indeed form that subcommittee. Thank you for your time, and again, great work.
Thank you, sir. Next is Lovely.
Yes, my name is Linda Lovely. My husband and I began planning a move to Oconee County in 1999. We built a house and moved here in 2001. Over the past 2 decades, we've seen solid progress in county efforts to plan for the future while protecting its heritage. The draft comprehensive plan is a good example. I'm pleased the county sought input from individual property owners who want Oconee to grow and prosper without losing its unique appeal. One example of progress relates to building construction. Hoping to buy an existing home in Oconee County in 2000, we signed a contract on a house contingent on it passing a building inspection. It did not. Built on uncompacted fill, the foundation was cracking. The home was built before Oconee had an active building codes department to do site inspections. The draft comp plan notes a high percentage of the county's older homes are substandard. Thankfully, the county now has inspectors tasked with strictly enforcing building codes and safety measures. My hope is the comprehensive plan will recognize the need to ensure building codes has adequate staff and resources. Enforcing codes protects public safety and guards against rapid deterioration of housing stock that hasn't been constructed to industry standards. Another example of county progress is its adoption of zoning. While not a cure-all, zoning helps protect existing property owners from incompatible development with its potential to impact safety, quality of life, and property values. This is as true for farmers and business owners as it is for single-family homeowners. I would encourage the county to expand the number and types of zoning classifications to make this tool more versatile. The county's population is growing, and with that comes change. The proposed future land use map illustrates the future population shift. I support the proposed map while recognizing the challenges growth brings to traditional values. Many comprehensive plan strategies use the phrase preserve and protect. Zoning and overlay protection are among the best ways to accomplish this goal. Again, I'd like to thank everyone who worked so hard on the comp plan to guide us toward a brighter future. My thanks go to the Community Development Department, the Planning Commission, and County Council. I'm pleased with Oconee's progress on a variety of fronts and hope the same energy seen in creating the comprehensive plan will be evident in meeting the goals and strategies in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, our next item here, we'll open the floor up for land use element. Adam?
Sure. The last meeting, we had this almost exact same element in front of you. I've edited the portions that you all had asked me to edit. I did not edit anything with the definitions regarding the land use map, future land use map. I figured you all would bring that up during this meeting, so chose.
Hey, the floor is open for any corrections, additions, or anything to the land use element.
I do want to ask that we change the agriculture, preservation on the, 11.8, on the future land use map. Change the agriculture, preservation, and rural, and combine those to where it's more reflective of the existing land use map for agricultural and change it to agricultural, forest, rural. So that more of this map looks more like the current map instead of something that we don't even recognize. And I'd also like to change on 11.6, where it says the future land use map will be accomplished through regulatory measures. I would like for it to say can be accomplished. I don't think we should, I don't want to see people's property rights taken away because they weren't in agriculture on this land use map, then they can't have a farm, can't have chickens, can't have whatever they want on their property. So taking out will be, but can be, I think helps. And then combining the agriculture and rural elements, gives it a little bit more broad definition for the majority of the county.
I'm going to step in as the historian here for just a half a second. Because I know where the term agricultural preservation came from, and I can share that with you. If, what the Oconee County Soil and Water Conservation District and the group over there with that works with the Department of Agriculture on all the programs that benefit farmers. They did a study a number of years ago trying to locate prime and statewide important soils in Oconee County. This particularly came to attention because when Golden Corner Commerce Park was purchased, after Golden Corner Commerce Park was purchased from being a farm to being turned into an industrial park, it was learned that about 93% of that piece of property was prime and statewide important soils. And not having grown up in agriculture as a major in crop production, not knowing the difference between statewide important and prime soils, I had to go out and find that out for myself. So does anybody here know the difference? It's a determination that's made by people who understand soil, who know the properties that allow it to be permeable to water, to preserve organic matter, to be rich enough in natural nutrients that crops are beneficial. And It was not until we actually purchased a piece of property that was statewide and prime soil that we were able to see the difference. But if you take 100 acres of land that is not prime soil and treat it exactly like 100 acres of land that is prime soil, and you plant the exact crop, in the first year that we did that, after we purchased a piece of property, the difference in the crop itself was like fivefold in yield, with absolutely no difference except the soil. So what the county did was what the group did was they looked at where the greatest percentage of remaining good soil was and said, we need to preserve that land for agricultural production. It also has to do with slope, because obviously, if it's a highly erodible piece of property, most of that rich soil ends up in the creek, especially once you do something with it, like till it or cut trees off of it, or whatever it is that is the process of agriculture that is done on that property. But even right now, just having been through this drought, the difference in the condition of our cattle on the farm that is prime soil and the farm that is not is simply, I mean, come out and see it. We can show it to you. And so that soil is truly worth preserving. Because if you've ever seen the poster that's in a lot of classrooms for agriculture that shows what all was going on when the first inch of topsoil was being laid down on Oconee County, it was, in many cases, the signing of the Constitution. That is how long it takes to make an inch of topsoil. So, for me, to see that agricultural preservation land diluted, and it does look like it's a particularly funny concentration, but for me, I would prefer, rather than take that away, because they were actually trying to preserve that soil and make rural agricultural as the next category, so that you understand there, it is the rural lifestyle that we know in Oconee County, where you have some stores that are convenient, you've got a gas station that's convenient for folks to get back and forth to town. It's sparsely populated, but there's a convenience store you can run and get something that you really need, as opposed to rural suburban, where you're getting closer into the town and there's more houses and more things. But the agricultural preservation, the other thing that was unique about it was there were still larger tracts of land, more in the 100 acres that is worth preserving that many flat acres of land. Because we hear Tom say all the time, yeah, I can build on anything. Yes, you can build on anything, but you can't farm on anything. So it's a huge step to simply take that out and make it not special anymore to me. I would like to see us leave agricultural preservation as an area that is uniquely identified because of where it is. And if we need to have Mr. Martin come over and share with y'all how that was determined on the map, and then use rural agricultural, and with the inclusion that, yes, obviously it is a continuing rural lifestyle, including farming. People can have the farms, they can have the cows, they can have the chickens. The other thing that, just to share, again, as the historical person on here, and this isn't even historical except for one reason, there is currently a gentleman who is fighting tooth and toenail. He lives on a century farm. But because a number of years ago, there were some folks in the lower part of the county, and the county itself looks down at the bottom part of 85 and says, oh, wow, y'all don't pay enough taxes. We need more money from that end of the county. And so because of that, they said, we need to develop down here. We need to build this area. So let's do what it takes to make traffic easier. So they decided they wanted to put in a traffic circle on Highway 24. And for me personally, I think that a traffic circle on Highway 24 there at the old Oakway School, it is going to present a nightmare for the poultry industry. Those live haul poultry trucks having to make a traffic circle and make their route. I don't know what the fire department's going to do. I can't imagine what they're saying, but to know how many of those live haul trucks have to go up and down that road, trying to make a circle, and make their schedule for processing, it would be devastating to this county to have the poultry companies say, you know, we can't make that route anymore because we can't handle that traffic circle. And that decision was made 15 or 20, I don't know how long ago, but it's been made a long time. And whether or not he'll be able to get it changed is questionable, but he'll lose a big chunk of his pasture if he does, because you can't put it on somebody's house and you can't put it on somebody's store and you can't. So what's left? Oh, let's take it away from the farmer. You know, it doesn't matter. That's cheap land. So for me, I see the struggle down there and would like to retain the ag preservation and simply add agricultural rural as a component that includes a big swath of the rest of the county then on that map. I believe, if I'm looking at it, if you take all that beige that's listed as rural and put it as rural agriculture, and then you've got rural suburban closer into the cities, I think that opens it up for farming. Maybe throw in a word or two here or there. But like I said, I know the reason for that agricultural preservation section, and I know it's really important to the life of this community.
So what color would you, if I look at one map and look at the other, it just to me looks like a total change in this county. That, if we could do like 2 different shades of green for this ag preservation and rural ag, something that makes it look more like what we have now.
Okay, well, I mean, that's brown now, isn't it? And that's, color doesn't matter to me, as long as we're clear on what the use is, but I can see making it green.
From a definition standpoint, Adam, is there anything that says we can't change the title from rural to rural agricultural?
These are all written in pencil. We can change them to say whatever you want to.
I think that's a good idea.
I
think it's a brilliant idea.
I'm like Stacy as far as I'd like to make the map look the same, but I first kind of want to deal with the legal definitions. I would like to see rural agricultural read slightly differently. To read that continuing rural lifestyle, farming, comma, agricultural activities, and open lands. That way it defines and throws all those words in there as to what rural agricultural means. I'd like to go down to the next sentence and includes pockets of commercial uses, small businesses, and mixed-use development, adding the word small businesses. There's a guy in a garage that's working as a mechanic shop with a sign out front.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to include that so people understand that. So I'd like to make a motion that we, under that second paragraph, that we change to rural agricultural, that after lifestyle, we add the word farming, comma, agricultural activities, and then it continues, and open lands. And to continue that motion to say commercial uses, small businesses, comma, mixed-use development. I would also, I don't see a reason to continue the sentence after mixed-use development, period. I don't know that it needs to be hubs. A guy who's got a commercial business out of his garage is not necessarily the hub of business.
Yeah.
He's just out.
There is no hub in
There
the
is no
rural
hub in
community
rural.
unless you want to count Dollar General. I mean, that's the hub of what happens out
So
there.
that is my motion.
Yes.
I would second that motion too.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So if we leave this agricultural preservation, if there's a farmer that is struggling and needs to sell his farm, can he sell it to anyone he wants, or can he only sell it to someone that is going to farm?
Oh, he sells it now to anybody that he wants.
Right, so this isn't a zoning map. this could be used, as Mr. Barnett has pointed out, this could be used as a reference to zoning, certainly. But this is a policy document at the end of the day. It's not the rule of law. It is a policy for you all, the council, to look at as perhaps a guiding document. So yes, at any point in time, if you want to sell the danger into industrial site or into single-family residence or whatever, this doesn't change. This by itself doesn't change anything.
Right, but I don't want, when the 5 or 6, ever how many of us are gone, the next people to come in and say they wanted that to happen.
Well, that map was there when the county bought Golden Corner Commerce Park and made it an industrial park, right smack in the middle of that green space. So it is definitely not the rule of law. I mean, they can sell it.
So that being said, and segueing from what Stacy was saying,
Colors.
actually, before we get to the colors, on that first sentence under page 11.6, under future land use, the second sentence says implementation of future land use map will be accomplished through regulatory measures, including in zoning and.
Hang on one second, let's go with that, we got a motion in a second.
Oh,
Let's go
sorry.
ahead and
Sorry,
vote on that.
let's
then
get
we
this
can
done
move
first,
on
sorry.
to the next subject. So if there's not any further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank
Now,
you.
Mike,
Sorry,
continue.
I was ready for the next thing. Here we go. So much of where we have gone and so much of the pushback from county residents and so much of what we're hearing, we have done a good job in this county of letting many natural courses of events take place. I'm not opposed to in city areas that certain city regulations take place, and we're finding many municipalities do that. I do have a concern over the words implementation is going to be handled by this future land use and this future land use map specifically. I'd like to remove that sentence altogether unless there's some reason why that sentence has to be there. To me, that just says that the future board that sits up here is going to regulate based on this map.
I agree. I second your motion.
So we have a motion and a second. That sentence be stricken. Any further discussion?
I know there's a lot of people that are for zoning that are here tonight. And in the rural communities, we don't take kindly to zoning and that was the majority of the county allowed zoning to go through with, trying to think of the right way to say this, without it being forced on everyone. And that's what an HOA is for. An HOA allows the neighborhood that you move into to control what happens there. The municipalities, you move into a municipality, you know you're gonna be told what you can do with your property, what you can't do with your property. The majority of Oconee County does not want to be told, you can do this and you can't do that. We know there has to be some type of limitations as far as safety and things like that, but that is the whole reason that I didn't like this element and wanted it changed, because I represent a huge swath of rural Oconee County, and this would not fly where I come from. That's just my comment.
Well, there are other people too that are in a compressed area too. So while you represent an area that's out there rural, that's fine, but there are areas that are starting to get very compressed. And there are problems that are occurring, and it's not controlled by HOAs. And, somehow or another, there's got to be a compromise here.
Well, if those areas that are being compressed want to be zoned, let them come up to the council or to whoever and ask to be zoned a certain way. This comprehensive plan should not be a document that says, we're gonna zone you by this map or by this. It should be a different meaning in it somehow. I agree that this sentence should be taken out because most of this county is unzoned has no zoning whatsoever. And if those people wanted to be zoned, we would have a whole lot more zoning in this county than we have now. We have HOAs, HOEs, whatever you want to call them, that tell people what they can and can't do, and let's leave it at that. And if you want to be zoned, you can come and ask for it.
Well, let me ask you this. How about if you change the word in that second sentence and took out the word will and put in the word may?
I'd rather the whole sentence be gone.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to strike the entire sentence. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
That'd be me.
All right, motion carries. Next subject.
Next thing, unless somebody else wants to talk, I got one more.
Go for it.
Under rural suburban, I think this is stair-stepping down in a very reasonably understood way. I would like to add under rural suburban, we've, in the one that said rural agriculture, we talked about farming and agricultural activities, but under rural suburban, I would like to add the language, undergo conversion from rural lands to mixed uses. I'd still like to get, and I don't know where, I'd like to get family farms in there somewhere. Because we see more and more, even read something the other day, New York City, people were wanting to have chickens so they could have eggs. And real controversy in a Manhattan apartment, whether they could have chicken outside on the ledge or not. We're in a rural enough area where we're seeing that in our HOAs where people are asking about that. And so simply identifying rural, suburban, and family farms still sits within that category, in my opinion, because it's not suburban transitional and it's not residential.
So where
I don't
do
know
you,
where we
May I
put it.
suggest that it be put, infrastructure sufficient to support additional development is reasonably accessible, and pockets of significant development exist throughout. However, farming is still found, or still available, or still permitted throughout.
If I may, so I'd ask you either to define a family farm, because, for instance, Mrs. McPhail has a very large farm, and I mean, it's a family farm for sure, but I think I know what's in your head as far as when you're thinking like a family farm. So either say small scale farming, if that's kind of what you're going for, or
Maybe,
commercialized, or go with Mrs. McPhail's edit there with just saying farmland without trying to.
I see what you're saying, and for me, in my mind, was not large-scale commercial farming. It was activities found on a,
You're talking about a hobby farm.
Well, and this is, I mean, I'll be honest, this has already come up in the development there where the new Chamber of Commerce is, because there, and we're gonna see it as more and more immigrants move into our community and into our country. They're coming from areas where they are accustomed to feeding themselves. And so even within an HOA, where they were not permitted to garden, a lady from India, where they came always growing their own food, fought and won the right to put a garden behind her house, even though it was against regulations. And so that's the word that we need there, is they can farm no matter what size it is. They have the right to farm. If it's a chicken coop or if it's 3 acres, it doesn't matter. In that area, that yes, it's going towards the city, but even so, it should still allow them to farm if they so choose on whatever scale they are able to do.
under that category, whatever that wording looks like, and somebody may want to give more input as to that, but
The wordsmith is right there next to you.
No, you've got the thesaurus over there.
there's still some large-scale farms that's in that suburban transitional right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what,
Now you're gonna
do
change.
we have a motion on the table?
Well, what if you said, but farming is still commonly practiced or is still permitted at all levels? Is that okay?
Where'd you put it?
After significant development exists throughout, but farming is still permitted at any level
farming,
that's suitable to the amount of land available or whatever. but farming at any level is still permitted.
You're in the third
Just
line
put farming
down.
is still permitted,
Still
period.
permitted.
There you go, just farming is still permitted.
Did I make that motion?
I'll second it.
Do you understand it, Adam?
I think I got it here, although it's gonna be super tiny, just at the very end of the,
Yes, they're right at the end of that
Existing
sentence after throughout,
throughout.
but farming is still permitted.
got it.
It's amazing. That look good to everyone?
Oh, you already put it in there? I wouldn't know. I don't have a monitor.
That's per Mr. Pierce.
Farming is still permitted. Okay, let me ask a caveat to that. By putting the word permitted, does that mean other categories, it's not permitted if it's not explicitly said permitted?
Oh, picky. No, I thought we said farming was freely, we have a right to farm it. So it, Okay.
Just from a legal standpoint, if you say, oh, well, this paragraph says permitted, that
okay,
paragraph.
what's a word for
I
it?
just-
Or you
What
can
if we
say
just
it's
take out the
still
word-
present.
It's still
It's still
present.
present.
There you
That's-
go,
yeah, I like
present
that.
instead of
Yep.
permitted. There we go.
Yep,
So how about this? So the first sentence still, mix of uses, but remain predominantly characterized by a rural landscape and farming.
Yeah, even better.
look at you.
I'm starting to learn how to this thing. Y'all learning me.
Y'all learning me?
All weasel worders.
Weasel worders.
Okay, I like that even better.
Yeah.
That's my
That's
motion.
good. Yep.
You still got a second?
Yep.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Do I hear any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, moving right along.
I thought there was done, but I got one more. The last one, suburban transitional, identified as areas of densest development. Is it denser than residential or industrial? It's suburban transitional doesn't seem like, under transitional, seem like the densest of the categories.
Well, so downtowns we wouldn't have because those would go into the city.
Suburban
So-
transitional denser than residential?
So I'm thinking like Miracle Circle, Walmart area.
Okay,
I think that's the densest development we have in the county, just because of the amount of people. Now, it may not be densest by square footage, although it probably is, in the unincorporated county portions. So we kind of have to divest ourselves of the cities when kind of thinking about this. So we're kind of leaving donut holes.
What if you use the word greatest development? So that it implies that you have a lot of development there, but it may not be necessarily.
and we
dense
can use the word
specifically as
densest. I just didn't know that word was, I wasn't envisioning that being applicable, but maybe it is defined as you described it. It was just,
What do you call something?
Because
else?
it's more than just residential, where residential might be very dense with residences, suburban transitional is gonna be very dense with residents, business.
okay, that makes sense with development. So that makes sense. Then I'm good with having a better understanding of what that word is.
It's kind of like ecotourism.
All right. Mike, you got anything?
Well, I do, but I want to wait for a minute here. Go ahead.
Well, I'll speak. On the future land use map on industrial, we see a parcel for Duke Power. We see a parcel for a county Highway 11 spot, and a parcel for the county hayfield. Is it the intention to remove and close out all the industrial parcels that are on the current land use map that are not on this?
No, sir, that's a good point. This is not a parcel by parcel map, but when we showed it to people without some markers on there, some identifiers, so we didn't have all the parks marked off except for Sumter. It's amazing without those markers, those major landmarks, it's pretty hard to identify on the map with the colors. So we just decided to put some major landmarks in there. Traditionally, you wouldn't see this being parcel by parcel, because Duke owns a lot more land, especially all up here and all throughout the county. Those are really meant more as for you to be able to look at the map and see, oh, okay, that's where
Well,
that is, that's where that is, and to find.
There's a lot of current industrial on 123 between
right
Seneca
there.
and
There's a big
Westminster.
Yeah, right where you're circling, I
Oh.
mean, that's all industrial right there. That's another industrial park, isn't it?
Yeah, there's, I think there's a.
Yeah, the intersection of Highway 11 and
123.
123. I mean, those guys ought to be represented here.
They ought to be, yeah.
It's certainly more industrial than the hayfield. There's, like on the current land use map, there's a place up on 130 that I take is probably a water plant.
Right.
But there's a lot of purple spots on the current map that would be eliminated on this, and that gives me the impression that they're supposed to be gone in the future. I was hoping to have time this past week to ride around the county and label all the places we got existing industry, but I wasn't able to. But if we don't identify all the industrial we have now on this map, we ought to at least carry over the current industrial from the current land use map.
That intersection of 123 and Highway 11 is pretty industrial there.
Yeah, I definitely think we need to add that there.
You can see my little highlighting.
Yep, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I also go back to, I know Ms. Lyles wants to talk about the areas of green, which I think are important too. The colors in the areas do still surprise me, that especially even up around the lake, that we've, in areas have gone out for miles off the lake, and we're calling it residential, and that still surprises me.
I just think that it needs to look more reflective of what the county truly is. And this is just too chopped up, and with the colors being totally different, it just looks nothing like the current map.
And maybe I'm wrong. All I'm saying as far as where the yellow is, as far as the lake, there are definitely developments and continued developments right around the lake. But if you ask me where the next development was, if it was gonna be 6 miles off the lake in the middle of nowhere, or if it was gonna be 2 miles outside of Walhalla, I would say it's probably gonna be 2 miles outside of Walhalla is the next expansion of development, as opposed to miles into that rural area.
Let's remember, this is a future land use. We don't know. We think.
But would you say the expansion is gonna be up near the National Forest before Clemson? Probably not, or up near the National Forest before Seneca expands.
What I'm pointing out about the industrial is this future land use map is saying that we are looking forward in the future to Snyder Electric leaving the county, Sealed Air, Sandvik.
Yeah, 123, just about from Westminster to Seneca is industry. I mean, if you look on the current map, there's more purple along that area than there is any color.
123 probably should be significantly more purple.
Yeah.
Okay. That can certainly be changed.
Whole intersection up and down there.
It's like he said, I mean, we have Schneider there, we have US Engine Valve, we have Sealed Air, we have Sandvik. I mean, it's like that whole swath of land is mostly industrial.
Can you change that? I mean, you can change that.
Yeah, it's got a purple highlight.
You need a motion to do that?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I make the motion we change from the part of 123 that is currently used for industry, change it to the purple on the future land use map.
Have a motion?
Can I amend that motion, just have a second, and I've got a question. All right, we have not, I'm gonna add another color in here, I'm sorry.
Okay, we go, so,
But-
does it, we do the first this motion, or is it tied?
It's tied to hers, because, I mean, when I look at, let's look at 123 between Clemson and, between Seneca and Clemson. I don't see that as industrial. I see it as commercial.
Where are you saying?
I'm just, okay, let's look at the, on this map, 123 between Seneca and Clemson,
Okay.
where he has it colored, I believe. Isn't that where you have it colored?
No, we're between
No.
Westminster and Seneca is what we're talking about right now.
Oh, okay, so Westminster, all right. I see some industrial there, okay, but I see a lot more commercial than I see industrial. Is there a way to differentiate between industrial because I mean, I don't look at Fats and that area the same as Schneider Electric.
That's a good
Yeah,
point. We're
yeah.
taking commercial completely out
Commercial
of the
is
future
completely gone
land
out
use
off
map.
of this future land use map, although it's not really, it's in suburban transitional.
It's integrated into the.
Oh.
It's in suburban transitional, but we have not highlighted that, and so if you wanted to put a color in there as, you know, and this takes a lot of thought and time, but I hate to see us turn all of that totally industrial because we don't want to see it covered in plants. But certainly you do want to indicate that it is intensely developed, and therefore those are the areas that you expect some of your housing to come in.
So in order for this map, if you all like this map, and I know, if you all like this map and said, this is what we want to implement, it would take, at the moment, it would take every property owner to agree with it, then move it to council and have 3 readings of the motion. Or it would be up to the council to say, we're gonna zone everything like this. The likelihood of that happening is, well, I'll leave it up to y'all to see what that likelihood is. This is meant to be something that if the county's going to get involved with land use decisions or get involved with, just land use decisions, then they would say, okay, well, what's the comp plan? Say, okay, well, that's kind of what it's looking at. But that would take I don't foresee that being a feasible thing happening here in the near future. Now, of course, could be. We could do a complete flip over of a lot of seats here and do that, I suppose. But I don't foresee that as being the most likeliest scenarios. Really, the biggest part of this whole element is the goals, objectives, and strategies. While this map is important, in this county, the goals, objectives, and strategies are have a much higher rating, I would say. Not this is important, but, you know.
Well, can we not just put the existing industrial off of the current land use map onto the future land use map?
Oh, yes, we can do anything, of course. There's no hard and fast rules related to that. Although it's not really meant to be a bubble map. Like if I could do this map without a map, as has been argued, I don't really see that being functional. So it's not meant to say that this parcel, and this parcel. The only reason why I put the parcels on there so that you all could navigate it. But I mean, we could certainly do that. But the idea is, did 10 years ago anyone think Hartwell Village is going to be there, or that 1,000-bed student housing complex is going to be there? That Clemson would sell land to them to put an auditorium. That Clemson have to put in a retreat back there. No one, I don't believe anyone here would have thought that, but maybe they did. So it's just kind of trying to rub the magic ball and see what's going.
Okay, that said, I guess what he's saying is that map's been on the wall for a while and it was hardly referenced. And
I was gonna say,
this is going to sit here and be hardly referenced. And if that's the case, then I'd like to change one word in there under what it says in the first paragraph. The future land use map, instead of saying is a blueprint, say the land use map is a reference for physical development. Change the word blueprint, which is something that a contractor uses to actually build something by, and change it to reference.
You can say
Under
guide.
11.6.
Or guide.
Say guide.
Yeah.
So are you saying that
If we're saying
going
that
back
this
to just
map,
sticking the map
if
in
we're
there
saying
like
that that map is in there because it has to be in there and because we think that this might be the direction that things are going, but that it's not a controlling instrument, then take out the controlling words of blueprint and put in the word reference.
But just like Adam said, all it would take is 5 different council members, and that can be implemented without a single bit of input from the county citizens.
What do you think the chances of that happening are?
We didn't think we'd be where we are now.
Well, as Adam stated in the beginning, the purple spots and the dark green ones are basically reference points because this is not a plot by plot map. And that just lets me or whoever look at the map and go, okay, there's Chaw-Round Park, okay, I know where this area is. And this is not leaving anybody out on purpose or anything of that. They're just giving people a reference point. When they look at this purple spot down here on South Carolina 59, they know that's in the Fair Play area. Where somebody that doesn't live here wouldn't know that's Fair Play. They see the map, they go, oh, okay, that's where that park is, I've been there. And it's just reference points. It's not leaving industrial parks out. It's not saying that the industrial parks are not gonna be here in the future. This is just giving reference points to where everything that this map stands for. And it's not a zoning map. I mean, because council doesn't need a map to zone. They can sit right here and go, we're gonna zone this county agriculture, industrial, whatever. They can do that without a map. They can do top-down zoning without citizens' input, without anybody's input. I don't think they're that brave, but they can do it.
Well, do you think that the industrial places that are marked on the current land use map are gonna be gone in 10 years?
No,
No, I do think that we need to
Then why
add that on
shouldn't
that
it be
123.
represented
I mean,
on the future map? if it's gonna be
123
future?
The 123 part, yes, I'd say we ought to color that in because there is a lot of businesses in that area. But to identify every single one on a future land use map, that's not what that map is designed for. I think is maybe going a little overboard with it,
Well,
but
if we're
that's my
gonna put out
opinion.
a product that we know is in error, why don't we just leave this map off?
Do we have a motion on the floor?
We do,
Have a motion to
I think it's
add the 123 highlight, was that not it, Stacy?
Yes, but Gwen was amending that
Yeah.
to
yeah, I was
something
just trying
other
to
than
amend
just
it so-
industrial.
to include the commercial development and the industrial.
All right, so,
Just exactly what he's doing right now, where he's
Okay.
showing that on that.
so for, let's say a swath of land from Westminster through to Wells Highway right here. And that's where you kind of get, so I'll kind of figure it out, I guess is the best I can say without having the GIS and the files in front of me to draw this on here, unless you all have some specific
I think you can
parameters.
just kind of draw it along that corridor.
Yeah, I think
But the
you
question
can.
is do we put it industrial or do we do it commercial? Because we only have 2 colors there.
See, my thinking with this map, if somebody that is not from around here is looking to move their plant or whatever into our area, and they grab this map, they're gonna say, okay, there's 3 spots that they want us.
I'm gonna answer that real
Okay.
quickly, because I've seen it happen in the lower part of our county, right down there where we are. They don't look at this. If they live in Chicago, or they live any place, they don't look at this at all. They pull up the county maps, the tax maps, and they start looking. Where's a large enough tract? Where's something big enough I can buy and hold for 10 years, and then put a development on? They don't care what color that map is. All they're looking at is, when they're looking at buying a piece of property, is if it's big enough, who's next to it, which they can tell, when they pull up the GIS map, you can see, oh, there's a subdivision right there, maybe I better move a little bit down here. So the only people who would look at this, and I'm gonna probably get in trouble for saying this, but I'm gonna be honest, if you look at the map that we're supposed to, our 11-2 future land use map on page 11-8, where Highway 11 goes up into the rural. It's interesting to me because when I joined the planning commission, one of our most important jobs would have been to help the selection site of new schools. And yet the school district of Oconee County stuck West Walhalla High School way up in the boonies, away from Walhalla, with no reference or conversation with the planning commission. And had they looked at this map and thought about what was planned for that area, and then they worried about sewer and water and all the other things they had to worry about, and oh, now let's run a sewer line to Salem or wherever all they're talking about running them. If they had just stayed concentrated in the area where we planned for it to be more crowded, more dense, more developed, more people to serve that school, they would have stayed away from that spot. Now, it's a beautiful school. I don't grant that. They took in Salem, and now they're winning all kind of ball games. I don't know if that had anything to do with the land use map, but anyway, it's just, to me, that's one of those things that should be a guiding light for those kinds of decisions. Look at it and say, all right, do we need to run sewer up US 76? Well, no, we don't, because look at where we're saying we want to preserve that as rural. We don't need sewer down there. Now I'm gonna really get in trouble. Because to me, they should have looked at Highway 59 and said, that's ag preservation. Why in heaven's name do we want to run sewer down there? I get it that they want to get to that real orange spot right down there in the middle of Fairplay, so that all that money can flow right there. But in reality, it's also going to turn a whole bunch of that green into orange. Because they did not look at what the land use map was recommending. So, and that's fine. It is what it's going to be. But that's how much attention they pay to this, to be honest. It should be a guide. But I'm like Mr. Chapman in that our goals, our strategies are much more important than this map.
So where's our motion
And
on
that's
the floor?
it.
I'm kind
So
of
we have a
confused.
motion, are you still,
I would still
Still
recommend maybe a mixed color of a sort of a purpley orange if you could, and color in the 123s and put industrial/commercial. Can you do that?
so that is,
So that you're
Make
not
it a-
referencing specific
make it a-
industrial sites, you're simply saying industrial/commercial.
Striped lines, a purple stripe with a
Yeah, you can do that.
pink strip, whatever that is, pink and purple stripes.
okay, so we
Yeah.
gonna have to
And that, with
change-
that amendment, I would second it.
And to change your motion to
I'm okay with amending my motion to,
what Gwen said,
what Gwen said.
and you second, right?
Oh, well,
Yes.
yes.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Mr. Johnson, more look at this map, because you mentioned this yellow being, this mustard color being too much. I can see what you're saying, especially north of 11, because that's a lot of residential up there though. If you're still of that notion to maybe kind of pull this back, a specific distance would be helpful to say, you seeing this residential being more within 1 mile, within 2 miles, within a certain distance.
It just, and I don't know that there's a distance there, but it just looks very different than the actual map. And it just seems strange that we would be suggesting that residential is gonna grow so much in an area that, I mean, the Cliffs is definitely up in that area.
They are subdividing like crazy up there.
And did you basically, it looks like you basically filled in yellow on what used to be gray called
the-
vacant land.
On the opposite side of the road of their development though, is extreme rural, farmland, rural, whatever. And this encompasses much more yellow than what the Cliffs actually is.
No, that's fair. Yeah, the only way I could see of like functionally getting it is either,
Yeah, and I don't know that at a distance really is I mean, you look going up Ebenezer, yes, I would say that would grow and continue to grow towards Walhalla. That makes perfect sense. It just-
Again, it's just, you know, it's
And again, if we've just taken a coloring book and it's coloring for the sake of coloring, change this word on that sentence and I'll be happy with it.
and so do you want to go ahead and make that motion up here with blueprint on top 11.6?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to take out the word blueprint and add the word reference.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Are we through with this one, or are we still hacking at it?
Not that the future leaders will use our verbiage as having understanding behind it, but
They can watch video.
you can watch a video.
But we're not doing our job if we don't do this the best that we
That we can
That's right.
Okay,
at the time.
if there's nothing else,
did we decide what color we were gonna do, what is now rural, so that it looks more,
no, we did not.
Can you
Suggested
turn that
Adam?
one from green to green with, I mean, can you take it from cream color to green with stripes? Like green with dark green stripes?
So just purely just an aesthetic change that we're doing here?
Yeah.
yes, so that the future land use map looks more like the current land use map.
So, yeah, certainly we can, there's no issue doing that, but just the difference in the coloration is more of it's just how the tax assessor has their verbiage, we just don't have that linking communication. So, yeah, we can change the color, whatever color you like.
Yeah, I'm good with what Gwen said, green with stripes. It's fine with me, as long as it's green.
So the motion is to change all of this, for like beige
Everything
color
that's
Right,
rural.
all the
yes, sir.
beige,
to beige and,
No, to green with darker green stripes.
okay.
Green stripes.
Got a lot of greens here. If anybody's colorblind, we're in
Yeah.
trouble. And I'm having a little trouble here.
okay, we got a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
For about an hour.
Okay, is that everything in the wordage of this element? And if we can move on to page 11-12 and start looking at the time frame of completion for,
I got it.
is that what we want to do?
Yeah, if that's what y'all want to do, certainly, just because we're gonna be, this is repeated here, second time, so if you all have, I mean, you can do it right here, yeah, it's just, we're gonna run into it at the end of the next one as well, so whichever way you all wanna look at it, certainly up to you.
I want to talk about the completion date column.
That's,
I want to, is this the appropriate time?
this is it, right now.
Well, can I make, do we need to make an amendment to the wording before we go into the timeframes?
Any which way you want to.
What wording?
I have, no, I'm sorry, there, all right, if you flip over to page 1113. Under objective 11.1.3. I would like to make strategy 11.1.3.3. And I would like to turn that into 11.1.3.1. Because we need to map prime and functioning agricultural properties to determine areas that may need protection before we do anything else. We need to know where stuff is, right?
You want to change that to what now?
I just want to switch strategy that is currently 1.3.1, I want to make it last. And I want to make the last one number 1. Because we got to know what we got to save it, if we're going to try to save it. And then I would like to change, utilize the zoning process to accommodate appropriate development as requested. Take out the word needed and put in requested.
Under, where is?
Just
It is requested? Was that change already made? Okay, cool, I'm sorry.
But y'all are thinking on the same page here, though, I gotta say.
And then under 11.1.4.3, instead of prohibit development, that is, prohibit development inconsistent with scenic character, we needed to say promote development that is consistent
That's what
with
it
the,
says.
is that what it says already? Okay, cool. I'm referring back to my old notes.
Okay, that's the prior one.
And then at the bottom, on the very last one, and this may have to do with time, objective 11.1.5. The city of Pelzer is doing some phenomenal things with affordable housing right along Highway 418. I think it might be worth looking into how they're paying for that. They're doing some really cool stuff down there. It's just with things that were basically eyesores.
Are we adding that as a strategy?
No. I'm just saying it might be a cool thing to go look at as we move forward with that strategy. I'm sorry.
So we still have.
Now,
the
time
motion.
frame. We're good.
So
I'm
a
sorry.
motion to switch the order?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to switch that order. I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. Now we can work on the time frame for completion. Mr. Adams, he's got the ones here for the land element, and then we have all of these other ones for all the other elements that he has filled in. Do we have any changes, any corrections, any conversations? Mr. Mike?
I do. This time frame for completion is, I think is going to get us into a little bit of a difficulty if we're not real careful about this. What the law says, or the regulation says, it says, and I'm quoting, implementation strategies with time frames. And then when I look at some of the other comprehensive plans, they don't have anything at all for time frames. And there's no enforcement as to whether or not you have a time frame or not. But I would like to ask some hard questions here. We have 188 strategies, and congratulations to us. We've got 188 strategies. And I want you to know that when I went through all of these time frames, that there were 4 of them that we were going to complete by 2020, and 40 of them that we were going to complete by 2021. That means 44 of them that we were going to complete. And if I'm counting correctly, we're going to have 48 meetings in those 2 years, if my math is correct. That means we're going to be very busy completing these, discussing them, revising, and whatever, to go through and somehow or another complete, not start, but complete 44 of these. So I'm asking I think we need to ask, Adam, how did you come up with these dates? I know you didn't throw a dart up against the wall, I know that.
So I'll start with the one that's probably the most predominant, is the annually one. I know you all hate the ongoing, but a lot of these are not finite. Review and update existing land use regulations as needed. Well, I could have wrote as needed, I could have wrote as going, I looked at annually. So that's how annually was looked at there. The highlighting means nothing. That's just, I couldn't unhighlight it in the Word document. I went through these and I got input from other staff members and kind of listened to y'all, saw what the input from the citizens were as well. And just because the citizens say that Highway 11 just came up a whole bunch. Highway 11 isn't on the 2020 timeframe. It'll take some time to look at. Trails, that's another thing. Trails were really greenways, things like that, people spoke about. It's a long shot to think we will complete a trail in 5 years. Let us put it as 5 years, and we can always amend that as we go there. So it's looking at a variety of, kind of spreading them all out and looking at a variety of inputs. Now, if you all think that some things are more of a priority than not, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be finished before other things. If it's a big priority, it just may take a bunch of time to do. It still may take 10 years to do. So that's more or less how I went about it in the meetings and input. from other-
Could we change it from time frame for completion to time frame for evaluation?
Let me carry on with this because I've got a couple of help things here. I think we have to be honest about this. The county doesn't have the financial resources, the personnel to devote to this many of them in this short amount of time. I mean, this is not Google or Microsoft or anything like that. When we were doing the executive summary, we started in with 1, 3, and 5 year timeframes. And then we stepped back after doing about 3 or 4 of these elements and we said, this ain't gonna work. There's no way in the world that we're gonna be able to do this. So we then went right back to the data that the citizens had told us about. And we put our strategies underneath the various elements, depending on the data that we got from the citizens. It just seems like if we stick with what we have here and using the word time frame for completion, that word completion, we're gonna get the county council into some situations where they're gonna have unwarranted criticism for not completing strategies in these timeframes. But more importantly, I want to be sure that these timeframes are connected with what the citizens have told us is important for them. And we want to be sure that we have this dovetailed with what we have in the executive summary, because what we have in the executive summary is set up according to the data that we got from the citizenry. So I'm wondering that if these dates need to be data-driven, and I'm wondering that one of the alternatives is to, of course, if I were king for a day, I would eliminate this whole column and just do what some of the other counties have done and just not put anything in there. My second comment would be change the word from completion, time frame for starting, and perhaps use something like that. But the most important thing is that this is data-driven, and it needs to be what the citizens want. 3 or 4 of these counties, Greenville, Charleston, Greenwood, don't have anything. You go to Cherokee County, my goodness, they've got a spreadsheet this wide, and they talk about completing, ongoing, pending, dropped, and status. So there's lots of variables that you can have here. But I'm wondering if these dates shouldn't be looked at, given a second review. And I don't think that we can do that right here, each one of them. But I'm wondering if we shouldn't change this wording, or if I can get enough traction, just eliminate that whole column. But I'm suggesting something like time frame for starting, or time, something like that. That's my input. Oh, wait a minute, not quite. I did a rough spreadsheet. The number one criteria we had was entertainment. In other words, what can we do? What can people do around the county? And that was strategy 7314, 2123, and the completion date for that was 2025 to 2030. The second one was for expanding the libraries, and that was a completion date of 2025. And the third one was maintaining the economic incentive for business. Now that got 2021 date, so that's, to me, right on. And road maintenance, boy, I tell you what, we sure heard enough about road maintenance, and that got a date of 2021. And I could go on with this, but I think that maybe we need to take a hard look at some of these dates. I know you're dying to get in there, Mike.
I actually liked what you were saying about that that you had looked at things from the summary standpoint of being community-driven or driven
Yeah.
by the surveys. Is there something that says that we couldn't design a paragraph into this that says the planning commission every year is going to review this document and take on 5 new objectives or 10 new objectives for that year based on current demands of the community?
Let me answer that for you. The implementation plan is in the executive summary, and that implementation plan has been closely reviewed by the people that will be going forward to the county council at their strategic meeting to say, these are the things that we want to move forward with according to the citizen input and the comprehensive plan. So if you get yourself in a box of writing a paragraph and say, we're going to, look at 4 or 5 every year, I think you need to go back and say, we're going to be sure that the implementation plan is adhered to.
Well, the only reason I'm getting at that is that this year, I think we've accomplished a tremendous amount. And we accomplished that because we have the objective, at the moment that we sat down in this chair, what the objective was that we were trying to get accomplished. We accomplished 12 tasks, and that was, or however many different elements there are here. We accomplished those, getting through those elements. I think if we were sitting down at some point, whether it be through executives, however we get there, is to say, these are the things that we should be taking on this year, and that we should have that task of, let's get it in, let's evaluate it, get it done, and get it behind us, let's get to the next one. If we have a whole list of things, like you said, 44 things due whenever, in reality, it's gonna go on the shelf again and get dusty.
Well, this is my concern, and this is why I put this together and looked at it and just looked at the math of it and the hard part of it. I just want to be careful that what we have here in this comp plan and under timeframes is working in concert with what we have in the executive summary.
Or as a demand of that year. I mean, next year, there may
It
be
could
a
change.
community demand that says, we have a push for this, and council comes and says, we want you all to address this. Well, they've said it potentially based on one of these things, but, oh, we don't have to work on that until 2027.
That's right.
If we do away with this column totally, is that gonna interfere with the executive summary?
No, it will enhance it because what you have in the executive summary is related directly to the data that we got from the citizens. And it just seems like we're getting ourselves into a difficult position. We've worked very hard, just like today, working through the future land use map, et cetera, and I would hate to see us get into a corner here where we embarrass ourselves.
Could we, at the very top of the sentence, that paragraph right there under C, could we add something that describes?
Oops, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I was pointing out to him, I'm assuming that's part of the law that you just highlighted?
Implement strategies with timeframes?
Yeah, that's what I just read to you at the beginning.
And so, but many of the counties aren't adhering to that law?
No. I mean, does it have to be a column? Can it be a vague sentence?
Well, could it be in that paragraph, that very beginning paragraph? This tables of goals, objectives, implemented strategies summarizes the actions that will be undertaken in the coming decade. There's your time frame. To achieve the outcome identified in the land use element. These goals and strategies will be implemented, will be reviewed at the beginning of each year.
And will be ongoing.
And
This
taken as priorities based on residential dire importance. I don't know.
Do we know if the plans that you looked at that do not have dates were written after this was put in there?
Yes.
About having to have timeframes?
This is from 2007, so.
They were done after that, yeah, Stacy.
Okay.
So us-
What, okay, like you said, you have will be undertaken in the coming decade, so you've given it an end time. If this is adopted in 2020, that means that it will be completed, will be undertaken between 2020 and 2030. So suppose that you, instead of calling that time frame for completion, you put completion date, and then we fill that in when it's completed.
When it's been completed.
So it becomes a checklist.
That's interesting. That's certainly, we can certainly do that. I think Mr. Johnson made the point when he's kind of, like, if I told you all we had another year to do this plan, would we be doing this every night?
No.
I hope not.
So I think that you pointed out that we've gone through 350 pages and group edited, which is by far probably the hardest thing to do on camera. And you only did it because you had a very finite time frame. So saying we got till 2030 to do it, I don't love, but that's not up to me. I think we can certainly, either look at these and give it a shot. I mean, we can do that. But if you all want to get rid of it and just use it as a checklist, that's certainly usable as well. That'd be very citizen friendly to use as a checklist to show what we have accomplished.
I think that though, that the things that we implement should be community-driven. This year, we are really focusing on this. Staff-driven. Staff says if we don't get this done, we lose our funding. And then, do we have extra time? Let's take on 2 more tasks. But I think in January of each year, these should be evaluated. What are the things that are taken on?
That's why I said time frame for evaluation instead of completion, so that we can look through this and say, okay, in 2021, all of these things have to be evaluated. We didn't just stick it somewhere and not do it. We have to go through, at least in that calendar year, the ones that we have that date on, and evaluate them. If we can do something about them, great. Not all these things are we gonna be able to do something about in the time frame that we've established, because a lot of it's out of our control. Like, some of the roads are out of our control. We can't do anything about it, I don't care what date we put on it. But we can at least look at it and say, yep, that's out of our control, we evaluated it. We did something.
You made a list,
All of the
right,
funding is
based
out
on
of our control.
driven. And then as we check them off, we would pull up the next most driven, right?
That's right.
And we check them off, and that we would pull up the next most driven, and each time we would be putting it before the county administrator, who would then follow through this implementation plan that she herself has suggested, right?
That's right. It takes place at the strategic session.
Right,
When
so
when they go figure out what they're gonna do for the year. And she's the one that will bring forward what she feels can be done with the funding available and the personnel available, and is it doable?
There's nothing that says that if by by June of the first year, if they've completed 2 or 3 of those and we can check them off, then she can come back and say, we now have time and there's X amount of funding still available, and we've got these next 4. I think we can possibly attack this one and this one. Can we do that? I mean, does that make sense?
All right, so we need a motion for,
All of that.
all right, somebody make a motion. Mike.
Help me out here, Gwen. Help me out,
Well,
because
I
I had
think that we
started
need-
out with just eliminating that column, and then I had shifted gears and said, time frame
I
for
love the idea of checking it
starting.
off.
Well, if the motion begins with the recommendation is that goals, objectives, and strategies be brought to council based on its ranking according to public input, ranking of importance according to public input. And the time frame column be switched more to do away with time, just simply date completed. And as things are checked off, then the next set of objectives, goals, and strategies will be brought before council by the administrator.
Well, I think you need to stick with using the words, the implementation plan needs to
Okay.
be adhered to, because
Okay.
that's what the administrator It said this will work.
And it's here, how to implement the plan, right? That,
Well, if that,
I know that's a sort of a summary, but,
yeah, does it have the strategic session in there, et cetera? This is getting complicated.
So we should just change it.
Let's do it
to
in bits and
time-
pieces.
okay, can we,
timeframe
can
for
we have a
completion.
little
I
bit
mean,
of time
for
to think on
starting.
that?
Sure, actually, if you all wanna take a 5-minute break, I could.
Let's take a
All right, all those, need a motion
I'll make the motion for a 5-minute break.
and a second.
Yep, second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Make a motion, we reconvene.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Hey, I would like to suggest we do this piecemeal rather than try to have one motion that is probably 2 paragraphs long. Is there any traction for just removing that whole column?
I'll move that.
I'd like to see it removed.
Well, I'll make a motion that we remove that column.
If we remove that column, where are we putting our time frame in this? Because we have to have a time frame.
Well, of course, there wasn't a second to this, so
What does the law say again?
the law says, let me put my glasses on.
Implementation of
Implementation
strategies
strategies with time
with
frames.
time frame. So the strategy itself has to have a time frame. And
if
other
you-
counties are not.
Well,
They
2
are.
wrongs don't make a right, so,
Exactly.
Implementation strategies with time frames.
The simplest thing to do is just change it to evaluation. Doesn't hold us to anything as far as having to be completed by a certain time. Doesn't say we have to have started it by that time. We just have to have evaluated it by that time.
but then you're still putting a deadline on that evaluation.
Yes, on the
Whereas-
evaluation, so that we did do something. We looked at it. We didn't just let it go. We actually looked at it
So,
within a certain amount of time.
How about,
so here's the question now. If you still have a date down here of 2025, there are strategies that are staff policy, that staff stuff that they just have to do all the time. In here, there are creations of policy that we at some point have to take on and create a policy. And then there are some things in here that are gonna have financial needs as well, that the county can't take them all on at once, but the county could say, okay, we've got the budget this year to take on this much money worth of projects. And we could go down the list. But if this says 2025 to evaluate or 2027 to evaluate, it's not even necessarily on our radar when it's like, ooh, here's a cheap one that's a financial, but it could be stuck in with this one because we're gonna be able to do this, and let's take this to the administrator. I hate that we're putting things out because we definitely won't touch them until we get there. It's almost like they need to be evaluated each year for, this is staff stuff, this is policy making, let's take on 3 different policies. This year, we're gonna take on 3 different policies, based on the needs of the community, based on the surveys that we got, and these things are we're gonna take on first.
all right, okay, I didn't get a second for my first idea. How about we shift a little bit to what Gwen said for a checklist?
So if I may,
Yeah.
in light of you wanting to keep this as clean, you made the motion. If you could call for a second. Mr.
I'll
Pearson.
second it.
Oh,
All right.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
well, we sure have discussed it.
All those in favor say aye.
Of eliminating
Of
the,
eliminating the
Yeah.
column.
I'd like to eliminate the column.
How many people voted for it?
You haven't called for a full vote yet. You've called for ayes. You have not called
All
for nays.
those against?
3 and 3.
3 and 3. Now what do? Do we go out
Did
and
not
do
pass.
rock, paper?
Scissors.
So we have to have a time frame, so we need to do a time frame.
Did not pass, so on to our next motion.
Okay, next motion. Gwen?
Can I,
Yeah.
I'm going to offer up a suggestion, an idea, and then let's discuss it without making an emotion, because I don't know how to make an emotion yet. But if you change it from time frame for completion to date of completion, to be filled in, it's a blank, to be filled in. It gives you an indication that you should put something there at some point, but it doesn't put a date down there. And then you could assign anything that is standard staff policy that you do on a regular basis as annually, and then you would simply check it off annually, if that's possible.
But the
If it
ones-
is a major project to be completed, i.e., I don't know,
Trail system.
the trail system, okay, trail system, then it is blank. And then my motion would be, once that column was date of completion to be filled in, strategies of the comprehensive plan be completed based on priorities determined by public input into the comp plan and implemented via the plan according to that implementation as described by the.
Executive summary.
In the executive summary. Once a strategy is deemed complete by county council, the county administrator, and/or other accountable agencies, it will be marked as such under the completed column, and the next top-ranked strategies will be brought forward.
Did you write all that down?
I almost got it all down, yes, sir. I was BSing at the end there, but
Does that satisfy the law? That's the only part I'm
The law
questioning.
says strategies shall have
A time
implementation
frame.
strategies with timeframes.
So if we don't have a date beside it, then are we satisfied
Timeframe
with
and
the law?
date, though. Is it a hard date?
we've said undertaken in the coming decade. Therefore, we have indicated that we would expect a date there by 2030.
I think we satisfied the law by doing what.
It's better than leaving the column, taking the column off.
Yeah.
I think.
My fallback is, we wouldn't have gotten this plan done this year had we not said it had to get done this year.
Right, I mean,
So by us removing all the dates, I mean, I'm sure we could wordsmith something in there that would satisfy the most rudimentary reading of it. But functionally, how does it function for you like that? I mean, can you, just kind of think about it like that, and January 1, you're sitting there with it, does that, you now have 188 strategies to go through and look at yourself.
well, but we don't have 188 because we know that there are some that have been prioritized. So we select those that have been prioritized,
So
correct?
those were not put in any sort of prioritization list, those were the most commented on from the executive summary. Is that what you're?
But I'm saying the public input should prioritize them, should it not?
It should, to a degree, with that it wasn't a scientific survey, and that we
Correct,
had
I understand
things of
that.
that nature. So I'm not against using that as using that as pure data.
And I wouldn't limit it to that list, because certainly I would say that there would be some that would have to be, I mean, if a bridge is falling apart, obviously that one has to be prioritized, no matter what the public said about it, because they might not have known that it was crumbling underneath,
And
so.
that's the big portion with the public input side, is that
Right.
you may have this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but
And that's why I think
Picture.
and that's why I included that it has to include the county council, the county administrator, and/or accountable agencies, because they're going to also add to that prioritization list.
Because just like the roads was a huge thing that was brought up by the citizenry, we don't have a whole lot of control over that.
Right.
So I just don't see how prioritizing, I mean, saying that everything that we're going to bring up has to be a priority based on what the citizenry brought up, but they don't have all the information that we have.
That's true. And I'm not saying, in other words, we could bring them. If they, let's say that according to this implementation plan, there are, 16? How many are, 16?
Yes.
There's roughly 16 that we know will be brought up at the first strategic meeting of county council in January. Then can we not also at that point go through and select some that we would like to address or emphasize? Maybe go visit the town of Pelzer if we'd like to look at better ways to do housing, or.
certainly, I mean, that's all well within your scope.
So we know that we've got a list of 16 that are going to be undertaken, and it might be that we look and there might be some that can automatically be checked off as annually because they are being done by staff all the time, no matter what else is going on. And then we say, and that's why, I mean, that's a very vague motion, I get that, and it needs to be reworded. But I would like to see it so that, again, we have a check off, we have a date that we're shooting for, and that is 2030. And you might want to put that, undertaken in the coming decade, and then put by 2030 in that sentence.
I have another suggestion. Can we, since staff, which knows probably more than we know, put these dates in here? Can we not have a separate column beside that says like date completed? If we want a checkoff list, then let's have a separate column for a checkoff list. And let's still use the dates that they've set, because,
I like that. And I do like the idea of a checkoff list. It
yeah,
keeps it
that
from
does
getting
both.
dusty on the shelf.
Change time frame for evaluation, and then add a column that says date completed.
Completed.
See, this is, you finished?
Yes, sir.
Because I had seen this at Cherokee County, they had a long matrix, very wide. And they had completed, ongoing, pending, dropped, or the status. They had a whole bunch of different categories. Another spreadsheet.
I like that though with the checkoff so that, I mean, because you got to have a goal, like you said, you have to have
Nothing that says
to
you
be
can't
done
have
by.
two columns.
And that, I mean, that's just a way for us to keep a check
So we
on
keep the dates that
ourselves.
staff has said these dates are, that they have put in these dates because these dates mean something to, they have some organization to it. We just add a column that says, I like that.
Wait a minute.
Restate
So-
your motion.
I make a motion that we change the column that says time frame for completion to time frame for evaluation. And add a second column that says date of completion.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I hate to throw more discussion in here.
Go for it.
You said time frame for evaluation. Staff has put these dates in under the understanding of time frame for completion. Do they need to go back and review these dates?
Do you see that these things can be completed in that time frame, or?
So when I look at time frame for completion, it doesn't mean we're gonna be done with something in 2025. We have to be done with something in 25. We can be done with it in 2024, or 2023, 2022, or 20. So if we say time frame for completion is by this date, we can look at literally all of them annually if you want to. But saying time frame for evaluation, to me, reads that by 2025, we are going to have evaluated it. Whether it's in 2020, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, that's when we'll start evaluating that within that time frame.
So you're good with the change to evaluation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? I'm good with it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And let's be sure, we got two columns, right?
Yes.
Time frame for
Evaluation?
evaluation, and then the other
Date of
the other
completion.
column is gonna say what?
Date of completion.
You all right with that, Adam?
Oh, sure, I think it actually does a lot more to kind of keep us honest, because if somebody kind of comes up in 2023 and says, look at all these blank boxes here, y'all.
That's what, that
So
was
if we
my
don't
concern.
have, if we have only one of them filled by that, and we have a good reason for it, then there's no issue.
Now, does everybody understand what annually means?
Every year. I mean, every year, every
I
month.
know what annual is, but I'm talking in this context. In this context, does everybody understand?
Once a year. It's gotta be looked at.
What are we gonna do, just look at it? Just read it?
Evaluate it once a year.
Let's do this.
Interesting
And
engineering
if
term.
for me, that would mean that perhaps in November, we get a summary from staff that says where we are with each of them, if that's possible. So that we have the month of December then to go, okay, let's check it off. Let's look at where it is. Let's,
We need an intern.
That's what we got.
So so if I may, so you're saying like in December, or whatever time it is, I'll give you a comprehensive plan, what we got done list, or where we are on these projects with you all.
Right.
Or maybe do it in July, 6 months in, so we can kind of see where we are and kind of keep this as a living document, keep it in our faces.
Make our update 5 years from now real easy.
yeah.
That's certainly doable. I mean, it's, no one will ever blame us for having to sit on the shelf.
Because if you have that date of completion in there, like you said, for our 5 year, that's all we have to do. We show what we did in the last 5 years. We have our dates in there, we're doing it as we go.
And it might be that we simply dedicate July and December to review of the comprehensive plan. And first meeting, we get the copy, and second meeting, we check off, or whatever.
Let's bring
Okay.
that discussion back to the motion that's at hand.
I have a motion and a second to change words and add a column. If there's no more discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. No.
Who brought this subject up anyway?
I think it was a mic. All right, we need, Mr. Adam, go with item D here on the,
I'm so far in this, I'm not sure what D is at the moment. D. Okay,
you'll do that?
yeah, you're certainly welcome to.
We need a directive to compile a 2020 comprehensive plan draft and get it all together and get it back to us by our next meeting, right?
I think that's certainly doable.
So we've went over everything, and now you're just gonna put it all in one document, and we're ready to go.
So you all looked at timeframes for completion and all the compiled goals, objectives, and strategies, and I told you all that whenever we looked at these initially, that this would not be the last time you saw this. This will not be the last time you see this either. I'll bring you a draft. If you have any changes at that point, we can certainly, change it then, but if you will give me a directive to compile it, I shall do that. I will add the executive summary, table of contents, the Bill of Rights, the Right to Farm Act,
Federalist Papers.
oh, the elements.
The extra column.
And the extra, and all the edits from tonight, of course, as well as the
And the
edits from the
summary.
map, as well.
And get
That
that back
sounds
to us
good.
by the
I would
next
like,
meeting.
I would make a motion that we direct staff to compile the 2020 comprehensive plan draft.
I'll second.
Second that one.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Mr. Adam, you take number 8. This is your,
Okay, well, now that we're done with the comp plan, now, it kinda feels anticlimactic, doesn't it? Like streamers or stuff.
Uh-huh, confetti.
Right, I mean, there's a marching band coming by,
oh, there.
so, we all met with council and planning commission, a month ago now or so, and they asked us to look at certain elements of safety along 123. We also met with, planning and economic development, and they asked us to look at sign designs and landscaping along various corridors throughout the county. I think we just did a major project that we just completed about 10 seconds ago on the dais. I think that going back, I would probably perhaps more strongly recommend that if we were to do the comp plan again, we do it in subcommittees or smaller working groups. So kind of looking at this as a major project, corridor planning, I'm going to recommend that we look at doing this as a subcommittee. A couple members of the planning commission, a couple members of the public, a couple members of whomever else you all so choose, as opposed to trying to hash this out up here, which we've tried a couple times so far in the last couple of years. So when we do start looking at the corridors, and I'm saying we're gonna start that right away, I'm just saying that we need to, I would recommend we set up a subcommittee if you also chose.
So do you want to vote, or you just up for information?
I think you all probably should, either you may want to defer this until the next meeting if you want to think about it, or if you want to talk about it, but definitely a motion or vote, I would feel would be the best way to, move forward with this.
What do y'all think?
I'll make a motion that we form a subcommittee to do the corridor task.
Second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
How many members will that be made up of?
So what I'm thinking as, we're putting in a good solid night tonight, perhaps we can come back at the next meeting and hash that out, what that membership looks like. Or you can just leave it up to me and I'll figure it out, but I think maybe coming back and trying to figure out a group and sending me off to go get those people, however many of y'all, plus whatever members of other parties or institutions you all wanna do. But right now, just to, if you all wanna do a subcommittee for the corridor plan, I think that's enough for tonight. We can come back at the next meeting and hash it out if you so choose. Or we do that tonight.
I like the idea of knowing what the subcommittee's who it's gonna consist of before I vote on making a subcommittee.
So we want to put this off until next meeting.
I would prefer to table it till the next meeting.
So do we need to withdraw the motions?
If you want to withdraw that motion, yes, sir. If you want to.
You want to withdraw your motion, sir, and we'll
I'll withdraw
table.
my second if you want to withdraw your motion.
I guess I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay. The motion's been withdrawn. Stacy,
Can we table item number 8, the coroner planning subcommittee, until the next meeting?
I'll second that.
all right, we have a motion. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Can we direct staff, however, to come back with some suggestions of how that subcommittee be made up so that we can move forward at the next meeting?
I'll get with Mr.
Yep.
Pearson, we'll get that together.
All right, tent to top workshop, Adam
Sure, or
or Mike
Mr. Johnson or Mr.
Let me,
we'll let Mike Smith start off.
it was an outstanding meeting.
Yes.
It was very, very informative. I bet there were 150, 175 people there. They were all very positive, very good presentation about greenways, and they went to great length to get audience participation. We actually went to a map and drew some lines as to where we thought the greenways would be. They even did some work around the lake. The presentation by the Swamp Rabbit Trail person that was Ty was very, very good. We even came up with some proposed names. They even talked about funding, how to fund it. It was just a very, very good, very positive meeting, and I think that the county will probably get some momentum going from that.
I thought it was interesting that this has actually been a subject, Parks and Rec has been a subject since 2003 on planning for county. I thought that was interesting. I didn't realize that. I also found it very interesting that it talked about that Parks and Rec is continued to be talked about on our comprehensive plan, and that many county parks are a maintenance and heavily funded item. They discussed the fact that in many communities, they'll do soccer fields. Well, that's great that there are soccer fields, but now you've got to mow them and you've got to maintain them. There's no economic development impact on it unless you say host a tournament, which hosting a tournament is great. It fills the hotel, fills the restaurant, but you got to close the park down for 4 weeks to get the grass to grow so that you can host the tournament. So not only is there a cost involved, but a maintenance involved and a shutdown time involved and things like that. They talked about that their Swamp Rabbit Trail and Easley's Doodle Trail, that these linear parks actually provide tremendous economic development because they connect things to destinations. Travelers Rest, actually, the mayor spoke and said that their Main Street actually was renewed and revitalized and recreated because of the trail, that it was a destination for folks out of Greenville to ride up, that they've had, I think it was 5 restaurants have come in, they've built an amphitheater, and they've built a farmer's market as a result of the trail that people were getting on it. And so there's a complete economic impact with these linear trails, and all that cost was asphalt, as opposed to regular maintenance by staff. So I thought that was very interesting. They described about that pick out various destinations and then build it, and more things will attach itself to those linear parks. So all of it was a very interesting thing. How do we get there? It kind of started touching on it, but there's still the big question mark of how do you get there? Because they were fortunate enough to have railroad tracks, which one is very level to work off of, or slight grades, compared to us being in a much more hilly area. But they started getting that conversation moved from just a document to this is how you take the steps to get there. but it was a very, very positive meeting for us to accomplish goals that have been county goals since 2003, to do and work on linear parks as opposed to just a destination park by itself.
Do
They
we
were-
have a does our Parks and Rec, are they working on this? Do we have a Parks and Rec?
He was there.
Okay.
Phil Shirley was there. And he made his presentation and actually helped us out through the last steps of where to put the trails, et cetera, et cetera. So he was very involved. Phil was very involved. The interesting part was when they got down to the financing of it, and that was very interesting. But in any case, maybe we've got this thing out of the starting gate. How long the track is gonna be, we don't know, but we got it going.
Well, and it was discussing things like, okay, where would we do it, since we're not a connect to a Swamp Rabbit or to a Traveler's Rest or to an Easley, but we could potentially connect Seneca, Walhalla, and Westminster in a triangle. It potentially gives biking opportunity, it gives various opportunity, and takes people off the roads, but it then gives also economic opportunity to, whether it be a restaurant or a pub or something like that. What Traveler's Rest said that they thought was interesting, that they had not expected, is it wasn't simply park or recreation use. That they gave the example of a lady had moved from Simpsonville, taking her child to school, but she was legally blind, that she moved to Traveler's Rest because the school was located on the trail and that she could walk her student to school on the trail without having to take some sort of other public transportation. That the trail system that they had created was a multi-use opportunity and not simply recreation. That with destination recreation, with parks, you also have park hours and you have potential park crime and things like that, whereas this multi-use trail was simply a sidewalk that was heavily used in a different location, and it connected destinations.
And the number of people that they quoted was using it compared to the population in that particular area, it was.
That was phenomenal.
Heavily used.
They said, if I remember correctly,
It was more.
Greenville County has 450,000 residents. The use on the trail this last year was over 500,000. It was 500,187 or something like that.
Anyway, it was a super meeting, it really was.
All right. Got anything, Adam?
Yes, sir. So, the other thing on there, on Thursday night, October 24th, Oconee County is a signatory on the Duke Energy relicensing, along with a bunch of other groups. During that relicensing process, folks managed to, with Ben Turetsky as leadership on it, managed to secure $1 million in financing from Duke. And the whole rationale, the whole reason is that Lake Huey has really clean water, and a lot of people rely on its drinking water. Greenville County has a tap in there, Walhalla's about to, Seneca Light and Water does, and as opposed to us having to go through the issues that Spartanburg's going through with having to dump chemicals in their watersheds, things like that, Duke said, hey, you all are local stakeholders, how do we keep this lake at this level of cleanliness? So there's a survey attached to this. This is on the Journal's website, Upstate Today. But this is a advertisement. It's also a little survey. So on Thursday night at the Seneca Water Treatment Plant or Water Filter Plant, off Northampton Road in Seneca, there's going to be like a public meeting, kind of a meet and greet, show you some maps and show you some ideas and get public input. So.
Mike and Mike are busy that night, though.
I was gonna ask if we could get, a pass, but I guess not.
So that was just my little update about a community event.
We ready to adjourn?
And you take the next one, Mike. Adam.
Oh yeah, commissioner attendance for the balance of the year. So you all definitely made your money this year. So I can work on getting you all checks for the $25 a meeting compiled over the year. If you all tell me what meetings that you all can attend, for the rest of the year, you can either contact me by email or we figure it out right now. I know some of you know right now, but.
I contacted you already, Vivian.
there's just one date that I am not 100% sure on. I'm 75% sure I'll be there. But my son's getting married the day before.
You won't be there.
We'll be
Well-
over then. If you recover.
If I'm still sane, I'll be there.
And you're gonna be here for the Christmas Eve meeting?
If there's a Christmas Eve meeting, I'm out.
That was the party. Adam was throwing a big party.
Are we, no, no, it's the 2nd and the 16th, so
I
we're,
know.
you almost had me there.
Okay, so get back with Adam on the next, there's 4 meetings, right?
Yeah, so if y'all give me this week, because I wanna send it in all together versus try to have them do 7 different POs for it.
Okay.
So, I'll wait until I have them all together and I'll probably harass you a little bit about it if you don't give it to me. So you can text it, call it in, or email it to me.
All right. Do we have any unfinished business? Do we have any new business? Do I hear the famous words?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.